Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Women Who Rock Investigates, where branding just got even better for women. Our media source provides case studies in the areas of health, policy and government, human resources, and more. Our experts are handpicked with credible information to validate the latest in these studies. Join us each Tuesday at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time after Women Who Rock with Success. Now, let's go to the show.
And good morning and welcome to Women Who Rock Investigates. Thank you so much for tuning in with us on today. And so today we will be discussing information in regards to DACA immigrants and to the questions that may pose to some of the individuals who are affected through DACA. And so we are still waiting for our panelists to come on to the show. And we will be back with you in just a moment. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Hi, this is JJ Despain. I'm here.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. I think some of our panelists may have been a little. Well, you were the only panelist, but I think some of the guests may have been just a little afraid, so they sent me the questions.
Oh.
They sent me the questions privately, and
okay.
we're gonna go from there. That's still okay,
sure.
Because they still can be able to retrieve the information from the podcast, and then I will also share a link as well in the group, and so that still will be helpful to them. So this is a total. This is the same audience, but this is actually an audience that is included with the show on today. So I would like for you to be able to give a little introduction about yourself and a little bit about Wilner and O'Reilly.
Yeah, very good. So my name is JJ Despain, and I am the managing attorney for the firm in Boise, Idaho. We have offices in Idaho and Utah and California. And our firm's been around for quite a while, I think almost 20 years, and we do anything to do with immigration. And we're actually one of the biggest firms in the country that does only immigration. So we've got a team of about 20 or so experts, and as well as paralegals and a lot of support staff. And so, we've got a lot of experience. Pretty much any situation, one of us has faced it. If there's something I haven't seen before, I've got 19 other attorneys I can check with, and chances are one of them can answer my questions or figure out what to do. So, we've got a lot of experience, and I've really enjoyed being a part of the firm and doing immigration law. It's something where it really is maybe not a matter of life or death necessarily, but maybe the next most important thing, where we're talking about keeping families together, helping people have a chance to stay in this country and support their families and be together. So it's very rewarding. It's tough and stressful, but it's a rewarding job. And so I'm happy to, share advice, answer people's questions, and help them kind of figure out those goals to be together as a family or to get a job or to live in the United States somehow.
Great. What an awesome introduction, because as I may have mentioned on a earlier broadcast in regards to immigrants, and I hate to use that word, immigrant, but some individuals are fearful. And so when I went to the group today, they were very, very responsive. I think I got about 100 comments. And so, but sometimes individuals like immigrants, they will freeze up at the last minute because they feel that you're going to use their name and somebody's going to come out searching for them. And so it's not like that at all. So the first question that I do have on the group is, what is truly blocking? This is from one of the individuals. It says, what is truly blocking our path, their path as citizens to citizenship?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So a lot of people do think of immigration as just this black or white issue, like either you're here legally or you're here illegally, but there's a lot more that gets involved. And so basically to become a U.S. citizen, it pretty much starts with either being born in the United States or having parents who are U.S. citizens, or if you don't have that, then you have to become a permanent resident first, and then after that become a U.S. citizen. A permanent resident, there's a lot of different ways to get there, and it depends on family relationships. It could depend on work relationships. Sometimes you can become a permanent resident through an employer. Depends on how you came into the country, how many times you've been in the country, and how much time you've been here. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it. But because of that, I mean, there are a lot of paths to get there. So, you know, if someone came in without a visa, they might think there's no options, but there probably are. Or if someone thinks, well, I've already been in the U.S. for 20 or 30 years, what's the use of starting now? But there probably is something we can do to get something more stable, something more confirmed. And so, there's basically a permanent residency. There's a lot of different ways to get there. Once you get there, then it's usually just a matter of some patience and a little bit of paperwork to become a citizen. So the citizenship part, it can be easy if you have a green card and if everything is fine after that.
Okay. Second question for you, JJ, is, it says, does Congress, are they the only one that has the power to grant a citizenship with an executive order?
Good question. So the president does have a lot of power when it comes to immigration to have some pretty wide-ranging rules and regulations, and that's something we talked about the last time we were talking, where and that can go either way, either to expand opportunities or to restrict them. But as far as the actual rules of how to become a permanent resident, how to become a U.S. citizen, that is mostly up to Congress. So that's why, like DACA is a good example, where a few years ago they tried to do something through Congress to make a new path to permanent residency, and it fell through. And that's why President Obama back then thought, as kind of a backup plan, well, we didn't get this done with Congress, but I'll do everything I can as a president to at least give work permits to these people. So it's not the same as permanent residency, but at least gives a little bit of stability there. And so, and then we've seen that happen in the past couple of years, whether it's the travel bans, where the Trump administration has tried to pick certain countries that he said are too dangerous to let people into the U.S. I mean, that was one of the first things he did after he became president. And that's something that a president is able to do. Or, like right now, a lot of the embassies are closed because of the coronavirus, and that's something else that is part of the executive branch, part of what the president and the Secretary of State can do. So that's part of what makes immigration so complicated, is some stuff is with the president, some is with Congress, some is with the courts, and some is at the federal level, some is at the state level. You know, there's a lot of different government agencies involved that we have to work with.
Okay, and so we're going to put that question on hold for the next question, which is huge, but I'm going to put that on a pin in that for a second. And so I would like to ask also, as to when immigrants are in the process of being in the intake sentencing, and I think this has been on the news, back here last year, 2019, of the outcry of how they are, all into one big cage, because I've worked for a federal institution 12 years ago, and so that's how they would do it at our facility too. If 50 of them come in and they get arrested, all of them be packed into the same actual area, and you would think that would be some sort of violation, especially because of the BOP prisoners are not treated like that. Neither are the Department of Justice. So what rights do, even though they're illegal here in the United States, and they're in the process of being intake, being deported, what rights do they have while they are here?
Yeah, so a lot of these people who are stuck at the border and are being detained there, a lot of them are here to look for asylum. And basically what asylum means is that they are fleeing their home countries because they are in a dangerous situation and they're scared to be in their own countries. And everybody has a right to ask for asylum when they get here. And it can be complicated. They might not have a high chance of success of actually getting asylum, but they have the right to try. And that's what we help. We have a lot of asylum cases that those are getting tougher and tougher as time goes on. But since I'm up here in Idaho, I don't deal a whole lot with people who are actually at the border. Occasionally there will be like a family member who says, my brother is detained at the border or something like that. But mostly I'm dealing with people who already got here somehow. They managed to cross the border, managed to get in. But then for asylum, we can look at whether, what the strategies are. With asylum, a lot of it is based on the person as far as like their social group or what ethnicity there might be or what religion or even gender and how they're persecuted because of that. So, we have cases from people who are on the wrong side of the political spectrum in a country like Colombia or Venezuela, where, they protested against the president there or against the power in party and feared for their lives because of it, so now they're here in the U.S., or things like that. So we try to look and see what is the reason why they fear going back to their country, and then talk about whether asylum is a good idea, whether it's worth the hassle. It can be years waiting for an asylum decision, or and sometimes it's hard to get evidence, especially if someone left their country in a hurry. They probably got here without bringing a whole lot of documents with them. But yeah, that's part of our job, is to look and see what the strengths and weaknesses are. But that's probably the number one thing people are looking for when they're stuck at the border. They don't have a visa, they don't have any other way to get in, but they say they want to try to get asylum.
Great, because I know that fear plays a big factor on some Hispanics when they enter the country, whether legal or illegal, and so that's the reason why I reached out to them, and also to you and your firm, to see if you could be able to help to unease some of the fear that they perhaps may live in, because like I stated, once I shared the information as you being on the podcast, it was like they was charged. So it was a lot of people that were responding, because people are looking for information and they have that right. Yeah. And it just seems like at the last minute they kind of got cold feet, and so I'm still going to share it with with them to make sure that they can get whatever it is that they need. So next question, and it is in regards to one of the individual states. She says, I'm a single mom of 2-year-old, and I'm only working, and this is something that they are also have concerns about employment. And it says, so one day she's only working 1 day a week because she don't have anyone to take care of her daughter. So she worked for a restaurant, and so to wrap it up, it says it affects my DACA if it will not. It says she's wondering if that will affect her DACA for only working 1 day out of a week, but only 8 to 10 hours. I'm trying to understand her language. It says, will it affect her DACA because she's not working as a full-time employment? That's what I think that's what she's saying.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Well, if she already has DACA, then that shouldn't be a problem. So what DACA gets somebody is a work permit, but that doesn't mean they are required to work or required to work a certain number of hours or be full-time or anything like that. Sometimes, we do DACA cases for kids who are maybe even still in high school or still too young to really be working full-time, but they have a work permit. That means they can get a Social Security number, and that means they can maybe take advantage of some other benefits, maybe get a driver license, depending on the state they live in. If she is not working full-time, that won't jeopardize her immigration status if she has DACA. One thing to keep in mind is with DACA, it's possible that there are certain programs that the person would not qualify for, things like Medicaid or food stamps or WIC or things like that. That DACA is not, it's technically not an immigration status. We usually call it that way, but it basically just means you have a work permit, but you still don't have status. And so because of that, there's a lot of things you aren't able to get. But with a work permit, you get a Social Security number, which opens up a lot of doors. And so if she already has that, that's good. And if she's working less than full-time, that's fine. She doesn't have to worry about immigration. Sounds like she has plenty of other things to worry about, but luckily immigration is not one of them.
Okay, great response. And so the next question is in regards to international students, and so this was another concern to see if they were going to be deported, even in regards, because it's still, I think it was something that the president had agreed to sign, if I'm not mistaken, that's on here too, that he agreed to sign, but some of the immigrants still worry about that. Well, you're just saying that, and then you turn around when it's time for your election, you're going to take it off the table, and you're not going to sign it. You're still going to try to deport us back over here. So one of them was concerned about international students being here in the United States, and they're saying whether they have a fear of being deported or not, due to the COVID-19. Everybody have to be online, most of it, and so that's their concern.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's been one of the other big news stories recently with immigration, and really quick. So I'll kind of give a little bit of background for people who maybe aren't sure what we're talking about. So if someone is here with a student visa, there's a lot of different restrictions on how to actually be a student and keep that visa. So one of them is you can't just come here to take classes online. You have to actually be enrolled at a school and attend classes. Well, when COVID-19 became a big problem and a lot of schools moved to online, they suspended that rule. And so that meaning ICE is the one that handles that rule and checks up on students and their status. And so ICE said, because of COVID-19, if you're taking your classes online, that's okay. We'll sort of waive that rule for the time being. Well, what they announced a few days ago was basically that they were going to go back to the normal rule and say, starting in the fall, you have to be in class, you have to take classes in person. If you're all online, then you're no longer a student, according to the student visa. But a few days later, they changed their minds again, basically. So what happened was a few universities like Harvard and MIT, they sued the White House, they sued the government. A lot of other schools came out against it too. And so basically the president backed down and said, okay, never mind. We'll just keep it the way it has been during the spring and summer. Because of COVID-19, if you're taking classes online, you can still be a student for the student visa. So it was interesting to see that because we were trying to scramble and think of some options or help people know, maybe you're going to be fine because you at least have a few classes where you're in person or, the schools are trying to figure out things. But then it turned out to not actually be that big of a problem for now. So any international students who are here are safe from that. It could change in the future, but for now there isn't any danger of anyone. If they're taking classes online in the fall, they're still protected. They can still be considered students for purpose of their visas.
Okay, great. Okay, and so the next question is in regards to EAD card. I think that's what this says. So the question is, how long after getting approved should I expect to get my EAD card? Now, that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, I would like for you to share with them as how to protect themselves from scams. So take, for instance, even if the president does not sign and they can be able to, live freely in the United States, of course you always have scammers to everything that goes on in the United States just about. And so how can they protect themselves from it? And the first question was, how long after getting approved do they expect to receive the EAD card?
Yeah, good question. So when we say EAD card, EAD stands for Employment Authorization Document, and so basically that's a work permit. So when we say work permit, EAD, they're all the same thing. And there are lots of different ways to get a work permit. All of them are connected to some other type of visa or green card process, so there's no such thing as just a work permit all by itself. So they're all connected to some other process, and because of that, it kind of depends on what that process is for how long it would take to actually get an EAD. If someone has an EAD approval, usually the way that works is you get a letter in the mail that says you're approved, and then the card should be coming maybe just a couple days later. But if you aren't approved yet, it depends on a lot of different things, how long you have to wait for that. It could be anywhere between 3 months to a year, depending on what the process is. But yeah, if you already know you're approved, then you're just waiting on the actual card in the mail. That should come right away. If not, then there's a way to report that to that would usually be USCIS. That's the part of the government that would handle that part. And there's some ways to follow up and say my card didn't come in the mail, or maybe there's an address that's wrong, or something happened with the actual postal service, or there's lots of different possibilities there. And then for the second part of that question, there are different scams out there, and I've seen a lot where, unfortunately, there are people out there who are taking advantage of these immigrants. They either take advantage of the fact that they might not know English very well, or they are new to the country and aren't really aware of different cultural and language things. And so, you definitely have to be careful. I think the number one piece of advice I would have for that is to just do some research on the different options for immigration attorneys or other resources. Talk to friends, talk to other people who have gone through similar immigration processes, and just see who they recommend. A lot of our clients come in because we did work for a family member or a friend, and they recommended us, and so we end up helping all their friends and family, and just by word of mouth. We also get a lot of people who come in because they find us on Google. They just Google immigration attorneys Boise, or even just lawyers in Boise or something like that. And fortunately for us, we have some good reviews on Google. We're rated pretty high on Google, so we people look at that and say, they must do a pretty good job. And so you definitely want to do some research and not just take somebody at their word, but look and see the work they've done for other people. And like one example I'll describe quickly is in Mexico, and there's a notario. In Spanish, that notario could mean someone who is an attorney and can do legal work, but in the United States, the translation is a notary. And a notary in the United States is not the same thing as a lawyer, but in Mexico it is. And so there's some confusion there where someone will take advantage of that basically and say, I'm a notary, I'm a notario, I can help you with your immigration process, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're a lawyer, but they kind of mislead their clients to think that they are a lawyer, and it can mess things up where they get people in more trouble than when they started, and sometimes you need an actual lawyer to clean up the mess, and that's some of what we do. But that's an example of something I've seen where unfortunately people take advantage of these immigrants. They don't have their best interests at heart, but I can promise that there are people out there, not just me. I mean, I certainly do the best I can and always try to be honest and with my clients. But of course, there are other attorneys as well and other people out there who are doing a good job. So I don't mean to say all attorneys are doing a bad job, but it's something you have to be careful of.
Absolutely. So the next question is in regards to This is coming from two different states. One lives in Utah and one lives in Chicago. And so the question is, it says, they have a friend, and this is in regards to employment because of the DACA Dreamers. Some, the ones that are in Chicago, it seems like they are able to work and pursue a field in law enforcement as a police officer. However, the ones that are in Utah will not be able to be considered as employment, even if they are legal immigrants. And so if you could, if you could or have any expertise on that for them, if you would address that for the audience.
Yeah. So, if you have DACA or have a work permit, that does mean you're allowed to work, but there might be extra requirements based on what the actual job is. And so what it sounds like to me is that some law enforcement agencies maybe have extra requirements, like maybe they say you do have to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident. And it's not that you're considered to be illegally working or that you're not allowed to be in the U.S. It just means you're not allowed to apply for that job or that you aren't qualified for that particular job. But, and that's something that just depends on the different agencies, and some states might have more requirements than others. I know a lot of federal jobs, if you want to work for the federal government, you do have to be an actual U.S. citizen, not just that you're allowed to be in the United States, but you have to have gone through enough of the process to become a citizen. So, it might not be necessarily that there's anything wrong as far as like breaking some kind of rule or being disqualified because of immigration. It might just be that someone in Chicago, they have different rules, and so they're able to get a job where someone in Utah is not able to. But that might just mean looking for other options, something like, maybe you can still work in law enforcement, but instead of being an officer, you're a dispatcher or something like that, where maybe they have less stringent requirements.
Okay, so it's not basically like a discrimination type of term as to perhaps their who they are and because of their DACA and what have you. Because I do agree with you on the fact of some agencies have different policies, terms, and conditions. I know for the federal, while working for them with the U.S. Marshal Service, they will send individuals to your community and will investigate your background. So some people have different stipulations, as you stated.
Right.
So thank you so much for clearing that up, because sometimes individuals, if they don't have legal representation or they don't have legal counsel, sometimes we're led to, believe whatever someone else tells us, or we're led to believe what something that we read, and sometimes articles are not have credibility to them. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, a lot of those types of jobs too, especially with law enforcement, they have issues of maybe national security or things like that, where it's not really about immigration, but it's other reasons why they only want U.S. citizens or they only want certain people for those jobs. So, I would say if someone has a work permit and they didn't get a job, that doesn't mean that their immigration status is in trouble or that they did something wrong. It just means maybe they need to look for other options.
And that's the reason why, I guess the main reason why I sympathize with them so is because of the fear of, of them asking questions. They don't know who to ask. They don't know if they're going to be arrested for asking them. They don't know if they're going to be targeted and what have you and things. And so I kind of feel a little sympathetic for them in that area as to why they feel they have to be secluded to each other and things, because there's some good people. I've learned a lot from immigrants. And so I just have an issue with how sometimes we as citizens of the United States can treat others indifferently. So that's just my theory on that. So the next question, this is in regards to paperwork. And so what she says, Carla says she submitted her paperwork to become a resident through her husband, though, which is a U.S. citizen. And she said her DACA, though, expired on June the 16th of this year, and she wants to know, do she go back and resubmit a renewal?
Yeah, so without knowing a lot of details about the case, I could say that it probably would be a good idea to renew the DACA, and the reason for that would be to get a work permit in case you have to wait for that green card. So, if you're closer to the end of the process where you're almost ready to get a green card, then you probably don't have to worry about renewing that DACA work permit, because once you have a green card, that counts as a work permit and a lot of other things. So you don't need a work permit again. But if you don't know how much longer it's going to take for the green card and you're just waiting, you're allowed to be in the United States. That isn't an issue, but you might not be allowed to work if your work permit expired. And so basically it just goes down to, if you want something as kind of a backup while you're waiting for the rest of the process, then it would be a good idea to renew DACA. And even if your DACA has expired, you can still ask for a renewal. And they might have some questions about why you waited for the expiration or what took so long to send in the renewal, but you're still allowed to. So, that would be my advice. There might be some other factors in that particular case, but based on just general cases like that, renewing DACA is a good idea if you don't want to wait too much longer for the green card.
Okay, great. And so the next question is in just a little bit off maybe some of the questions that you had answered before. So we know we have seen in the news, people are in an outrage, especially immigrants, about the murdering of the of Vanessa Gillian. And so there are a lot of concerns. Of course, the first thing sometimes we cry out in action as to, it may be a little racism against that, from the immigration side. So what type of support, in a empathetic way could you offer to DACA, the DACA dreamers, to those that are concerned as to whether, because that's what I'm seeing, that they're trying to see if this young lady is going to get justice, even by her being in the military forces and what has happened to her. And like I stated, sometimes individuals may feel that they are discriminated against already because they're legal or unlegal. So what type of support, if you didn't mind, to offer to those that have that concern in regards to Vanessa, because it has touched a lot of people, even Americans.
So there are some good resources for immigrants who are in a similar situation like hers. So one example is there is a type of status available for immigrants who are victims of crimes, or maybe someone in their family has been the victim of a crime. And the reason for that is kind of like what you're saying, where immigrants, they are here, they're living kind of in the shadows or trying not to be discovered, but if they are the victim of a crime, they might get nervous about, well, do I even want to go to the police, or am I just going to get myself in trouble? There is a status available for victims of crimes who do report to police, cooperate in their investigation, and it is kind of a way to say that we value their assistance to law enforcement, and we aren't going to worry as much about whether they're here legally or not, or if they overstayed a visa or anything like that. And it's kind of like a waiver or an amnesty for people who are in those situations. So, my message to anybody out there, if you've been the victim of a violent crime, don't be afraid to report it to police, because it could help you immigration-wise, as well as whatever the crime is, where hopefully the person who hurt you is brought to justice. And that, it's kind of a separation between what the actual crime is and the immigration case. So some people just kind of get it all mixed together, and they feel like, well, if I'm here illegally and I go to the police, I'm going to get in trouble. The regular local police doesn't actually handle immigration matters very often. Usually there's some overlap sometimes, but a regular city police officer is not supposed to be checking on people's immigration status unless they're arrested or in jail or something like that. So if someone comes to them who's the victim, more often than not, the police department is going to appreciate that a crime is being reported, that they're looking for help, and because of that cooperation with law enforcement, then they can get status. We call it a U visa, and it's just because basically there's a type of visa for every letter of the alphabet. So the U visa is the one for crime victims. And, it could be a way to get a work permit, get status, eventually become a permanent resident, and then after that a U.S. citizen. And so, that's one thing I hope people take away is to not be afraid of the police. I know that's something else that's been in the news about whether police are actually hurting or helping our society. But in general, they are here to get crime off the streets. And if you're the victim of a crime like that, don't be afraid to report it and get some help. Another thing I'll briefly mention that is kind of related to this story with Vanessa Guillen is there are also benefits through military service. So we have families where maybe the parents are here without immigration status, but they have children who are born here. They're U.S. citizens. They grow up. They join the military. They can help their parents get some kind of immigration status too, because that's another thing that the immigration authorities value is someone who's loyal to their country and dedicated in serving their country, and they want to help them out too. So one thing we do is, let's say someone, they're 20 or 21, they're joining the military, they're in training. Well, they can help their parents get something called advanced parole, which is, it's kind of like saying that they are allowed to be in the United States to wait. It's kind of like imagining that they're waiting in line outside of the country to come in. So even though, of course, they're already here, it's like treating them like they're waiting in line to come in, so now they have permission to do that, and then eventually that could turn into actually being allowed in, and by that I mean actually getting a green card, becoming a permanent resident. So, those are some options. So if anyone listening is thinking, I've been the victim of a crime, or me or someone in my family is in the military, that can open up some doors.
Great response. So for the last question, because we want to save some of them for the next podcast coming up on next week, and of course we don't want to drain you from all of the resources that are inside of you. But so this last question today, JJ, is in regards to real estate. So what Adriana is asking, she says, says she's a DACA dreamer. She's from California, and she's asking, how do she qualify to be able to purchase a home? See, so again, we are still having these questions from immigrants who feel that they may be discriminated because of whether they are legal or non-legal. But perhaps she's DACA, so she is is legal within the United States. So she wants to know, how does she go by qualifying as a DACA recipient as to trying to purchase her home for her and her husband?
Yeah, well, that's great. And I do know a lot of clients who, they're able to reach toward that American dream and buy a house, settle in, raise their family here, and someone who has DACA is able to do that. So I can't speak to the details of the actual home buying process, but as far as the immigration side of things, someone who has DACA has a work permit and can get a Social Security number, and that makes it easier to get loans or get a mortgage or get a credit report and all those things that might be necessary for buying a house. So, there shouldn't be any issues because of immigration status, because there's definitely not supposed to be any sort of discrimination based on that. No one can deny a loan or deny a house or other purchases or things like that because of immigration status. They could deny based on low credit, or maybe someone doesn't have a Social Security number so they can't check on their credit. But if someone has a Social Security number because of a work permit through DACA, then the immigration part of it isn't really involved, and everything else should go pretty smoothly. If she wants to buy a house, she shouldn't worry about getting in trouble for trying to buy a house. Most banks or other institutions involved with that are going to be happy to help her out.
Great. JJ, we have had such a awesome opportunity with you today in sharing with the audience, and then of course this will be shared as well with the recipients of DACA and those who perhaps are in a little fear as to what the next
Yeah.
step that they're supposed to take and things. And so they don't have the answers. They are going off of resources according to what each other's experience are or previous experience are. So this is the reason why we have brought you to the table to be able to give them a little bit more credibility, accountability, and also a little bit more stability in that area. So this is the opportunity that you could be able to share with the listeners of how they can be able to reach you if they want to follow you in the future on any of your social media handles or any books or materials that you have authored. You can do that at this time.
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm glad for this opportunity to try to clear up some misconceptions and provide some clarity, and that's something I really want to do. That's one of the biggest things I want to do with this kind of job is just help people feel more confident, not put in so much guesswork, but actually have some confidence and some optimism, and so that's something I always try to do. To find me, I'm on Facebook and Instagram as JJD Immigration. My name is JJ Despain, so the initials are JJD Immigration. On Twitter as well, under JJD Immigration. And then my firm, again, is Wilner & O'Reilly. You can find our firm website. That's wilneroreilly.com, and be able to contact us there. And even though I'm here in Idaho, we can do immigration work for anybody anywhere in the world, really. So, if you have more questions or maybe have a case you want an attorney to help out with or anything else, try to find me, and I'm happy to answer more questions and help people out.
Absolutely, and that was going to be the next statement that I was going to be able to share with the audience and the listeners, that this is a Q&A, and if they need to be able to seek further information in regards to this, they can be able to reach out to you and your law firm as to how you can be able to take them through the strategic steps that they may need to be able to adhere or get some of these concerns that they have answered. So thank you once again for being our guest today, and we will see you next Tuesday at the same time at 11 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. So guests, for all upcoming events, you can go to our website at www.womenwhorockwithsuccess.com. So until next week, you have a great day.